Welcome back to Success with Steven. My name is Steven Smith. On this channel, we talk about all things financial literacy. And today we're going to be talking about how you can get a $25,000 credit line with Navy Federal. That's going to be for any of their credit cards as a beginner in 2025. I previously did a video about your credit line increases. But for those of you who are brand new to Navy Federal, you've never had an account with them before, you probably want to know how you can get a higher credit line that you're used to seeing with Navy Federal all the way up to $80,000. $80,000 is the maximum that you can possibly get, unless you also get their business credit card, then that can go up to $25,000. So you can have a little bit more if you have, the maximum amount of exposure plus that. But this will get you started with the higher limits in the beginning. So that way it's a very, very short time for you to get up to that much, much higher $80,000 cap. So with that being said, let's get right into the video. So this gets asked in the comments quite often, so I'm going to address it because it is a brand new year and you may be new to Navy Federal or new to this channel. So how do you become a member of Navy Federal? Well, it's actually very simple. It's not complicated. The most obvious way is to actually be in the military. The next thing is to have a family member that is in the military. They can become a member, and by association, you can also be a member. Now, if you have a grandparent, a parent, anything like that was in the military but are currently deceased, you can also call and become a member that way. There's also DOD. DOD civilians is the Department of Defense. These are for the civilians that are non-uniformed employees of the military, or they may have various roles in the military. You also can live with someone who's not a family member, but possibly a roommate. If you guys stay in the same home and you pay half the rent, you can become a member that way, even if they don't provide you with their access code. If you have children that are in the ROTC, then they can actually qualify for membership as well because they are preparing for the military service. Now, to join, they may need you to provide proof of their ROTC affiliation, such as your student ID, a letter from your ROTC unit, something of that nature. Now, I don't know if this can actually go as far back as the ROTC juniors, like if they're in middle school, quite possibly, you might be able to do it, but that I'm not quite sure. I would call Navy Federal for clarification on that. If anybody has done it that way, then drop that in the comments for anyone who may have that question. All right. So any of these ways you can use to become a member. Again, not that complicated, pretty straightforward. Hopefully one of these will work for you. Now, with that question being answered, let's move on to the next section. Now, the reason why we're watching this video is because you want to understand how you can get a $25,000 credit limit on Navy Federal credit cards as a beginner, someone who is brand new to Navy Federal. First thing I want to talk about is internal score. Now, I have an entire video dedicated to this. It is very thorough and a lot of you have seen it. It has done very, very well. I think it's close to 70,000 views right now. If you want more in-depth information about internal scores, I recommend that you watch that video. But for today, I want to show you a letter here about a internal score. And this is something, when you hear the term at Navy Federal, it's referring to an internal scoring model that Navy Federal will use to evaluate members' credit worthiness for various products such as credit cards. Now, Navy Federal does not publicly disclose this information, and if you've called them, their customer service may even tell you that there is no internal score at all. But this is a letter of a internal score that was given on January the 7th, 2024. It shows 289, and we'll talk about what the score range actually means. Now, it's generally understood that this is proprietary information, which means it's an internal system. It's not actually meant for us to understand or meant for us to actually use or to know. But this is how they assess risk, and every bank has this. Every financial institution will have some sort of risk factor gauge to make sure that they can lend to you either more or less. I mean, everyone has to have that. This score may take into account factors like your credit history, your income, debt levels, banking history, and that can be with Navy Federal or any other place. It doesn't really matter. all that information might be used in factoring this score. It is important to note that in addition to internal scoring, Navy Federal will also use traditional scoring models like your FICO score to make a decision on lending or to give you these high credit limits. So if you are applying for a credit card, loan, mortgage, doesn't matter, they will likely look at both your FICO score and they will also look at your internal score to determine whether you're eligible for the requested product and what terms might apply with that product, such as the APR or what have you. Now that we kind of have a brief idea about what the internal score is, I'm going to give you basically a formula that I've come up with that I've used from systems that, Navy Federal has shown that I believe will help you get $25,000 as your initial starting credit line. Now, this is something that I completely created. So, you don't have to take it as fact, just take it with a grain of salt. But I do want to explain something to you. So the following formula that you're looking at is proposed by me regarding that this is what Navy Federal uses for their algorithm in order to approve you for higher credit limits. So the Navy Federal internal score, I believe that it's comprised of your TransUnion FICO 9 score plus years of membership plus your account balance plus your account quantity or quality plus direct deposit. So I know that that's a lot, but look at it like this. If you had an equation or anything like that, usually there are factors in that equation that will give you whatever the answer is. So you take all of these factors, your TransUnion FICO score being the first one, you add your years of membership, your account balance, your quality and quantity of accounts, and your direct deposit. Those factors will give you what your internal score is. So if your Navy Federal internal score is 250 or higher, you can apply for an unsecured credit card. And I believe that it can potentially be up to 25,000. Whatever you believe, this is a system. Every system is created in order to support something, but systems, whether it's natural, whether it's man-made, inherently they exhibit patterns, and due to interactions between any components, we can observe them, right? We can observe a regularity in order to determine exactly what that means. To put simply, if people have a high TransUnion score, a certain amount of years of membership or they're new, a certain account balance, a certain account quantity or quality, and direct deposit, we have all this information about Navy Federal on YouTube, online, all these resources. Eventually, if you start to look at the information long enough, you'll start to see patterns. These patterns is basically what I'm saying is the system that gets you your internal score. These patterns, they emerge from underlying dynamics and feedback loops operating within this Navy Federal system that allows us to understand and analyze complex systems by identifying these reoccurring structures. We're just identifying patterns that happen over and over, and people who had these particular things, the outcome was this. That's all that we're looking at. So this is my observation of the Navy Federal internal score system. And based on this observation, I made this simple formula. So you can screenshot it, take it for what you will. Again, I would take it with a grain of salt because this is just what I'm put together. It's my own personal observation, but I do believe if it's not, it's not perfect, but I bet I'm not too far off from this being correct. So the first thing I want to talk about, in order for you to get that $25,000 credit line to start with Navy Federal, you want to keep a balance in your Navy Federal checking account when you apply for any product. So Navy Federal will use the money you deposit in your account to fund loans to other members, whether that be in the form of personal loans or mortgages, business loans, or credit cards. When you keep a balance in your account, Navy Federal can lend out a portion of that money to borrowers and charge them interest. And this is one of the primary ways that credit unions and banks generally make money. So it actually helps by leaving some money in this account. And of course, it will increase your internal score because you look better in the eyes of this credit union. Now, I recommend opening the flagship checking and savings. Reason being, it is the premier checking account that you can possibly get. And some of these things, they give you the obvious answers, right? You need to deposit at least $1,500 into your Navy Federal flagship checking account to have no monthly service fee. So without them having to even say it, you're already aware they want you to keep at least $1,500 in this account. My recommendation, put $1,500 in that account. And then if you open a savings account, I recommend opening the money market savings where you can earn some dividends. And for that one, you need to have at least $2,500 for you to start earning. So my recommendation is leave $1,500 in the flagship checking, $2,500 in the money market savings. Again, these are products that will allow Navy Federal to then lend out money to other borrowers, including loans and lines of credit. And that way they can earn interest and fees and things like that, that then will help support everything else. So again, like everything else, it is an ecosystem working together for your part. In order for you to get those higher credit lines, you need to leave more money with this particular credit union. The next one on our list is the Navy Federal Pledge Loan. Once again, I have an entire video on this if you want to check out that video. But the Pledge Loan is a product that's offered by Navy Federal that helps members build or improve their credit score. And it will help increase your internal score as well. So for this particular video, that's what we're looking to do. But it's essentially a secured loan where you pledge a portion of your own savings, usually in the form of a certificate of deposit, meaning money in your savings account. Then they hold it somewhere else as collateral. The loan amount is typically equal to the amount that you pledge. Now, if you want, a lot more information on the pledge loan, once again, I have an entire video that goes over that. You can check out that video. So I'm going to give you a brief example of what the pledge loan actually is. If you pledge $2,000 from your savings account, you can then borrow $2,000 through the pledge loan. Now, let's say on that pledge loan, you had a 3-year repayment term with an interest rate of 5%. That means you'd have a monthly payment of $60. Once the loan is fully repaid, the $2,000 from your savings will be returned to you in full, minus, of course, whatever you paid in interest, as long as you meet the payment requirement terms. Now, the pledge loan hack, which is what a lot of people use it for, it's where you pay 90% off of the loan immediately. And then when you do that, you get 90% of your money right back. As soon as you pay the loan, whatever you pay, Navy Federal gives right back to you. So it's really just shuffling money around. Now that goes back into your savings and you will receive a credit score boost because it will look like you paid 90% of a loan, which of course looks like you're very, very good at handling debt. But you're not supposed to pay it off completely because your credit report is how well you handle debt, not how fast you pay debt off. So you want to make sure that you keep it there, and you will not have a payment on that pledge loan until basically that 90% that you paid up to. You won't have a payment until up to that point, which Navy Federal will then give you a date of your next payment. So you don't have to actually pay anything on it until that time, or you can pay it off to the final term. In this example, leave $60. You'll have a payment due in basically 3 years. That last month you can pay it, and then it's all done, and you get 3 years of on-time payments. But with this, it does help boost your internal score with Navy Federal because you have products and services with them, and it looks like you're handling them very, very well. Direct deposit status was an obvious one, but when you get Navy Federal, you want to set up your direct deposit. Now, it does not have to be 100%. It can be just a portion. You don't have to do the entire thing, but they like to see this for several key reasons, but I'm just going to go over the main one. Operationally and financially, really, really good for you to have a direct deposit set up because it's predictable cash flow. As long as they can predict that you're going to have this deposit, then they can use that to actually have a flow of cash that they can then use to tie into regular income. When they see that, banks will know when to expect that so they can manage their liquidity better. It's really that simple. So having predictable deposits and things that you can rely on just makes it much easier for operational purposes. Now, setting up your direct deposit is really easy. You can go through your employer, contact your HR, however they would like to set that up for you. But if you're like me and you're self-employed, you can set up your payroll through Gusto, ADP, etc., they will allow you to have a direct deposit for your money that you're paying yourself as an employee of your company. And then that will show up as direct deposit for Navy Federal. So even if you're self-employed, that is the way that you can get around that if you would like to have that added to your Navy Federal account. Navy Federal pre-qualification. The pre-qualification tool is something that allows members to potentially see which credit cards they can qualify without having to submit a formal application. And it's a way to get an initial sense of eligibility without impacting your credit score. Now, if you tried the pre-qualification tool and received no offers, I would suggest not applying, but there is a higher likelihood that you can possibly be denied. Now, I do have a video on removing hard inquiries. So if you are denied, it's not really a problem. You can watch that video and you can remove the hard inquiry. No big deal. Then you will get something in the mail called an adverse letter. That letter will tell you exactly why you were denied. Look out for that. But if you're denied for a credit card with Navy Federal, you're definitely not going to be getting a $25,000 credit line. So at that point, there's something else that you need to evaluate. Now, for the pre-qualification tool, I recommend using it so you can kind of gauge where Navy Federal sees you. If you have all the credit cards there and they're offered to you, that's a great indication that you're going to be approved for a Navy Federal credit card. So that just kind of checks it off the list. You're going to be approved. Now, let's see what we can do about getting that higher initial credit line. This is my recommendation, but you don't have to do it. Each Navy Federal credit card has a feature that might benefit you depending on your lifestyle or what it is that you're looking for. So if you want 0% APR or very low APR or balance transfers, maybe the Platinum. If you want cash back, then maybe the cash rewards. If you like the American Express Affinity, then there's a card for that. However, the one that I recommend that you apply for is going to be the Navy Federal Flagship Rewards Card because it is a guaranteed initial starting limit of $5,000. At least I know I'm getting the card that has the highest limit requirement. Let's say that you apply for the Navy Federal Flagship Rewards Card. You're approved, right? That's great. Let's say they approve you for a lower limit and it wasn't $25,000. If you are approved for a Navy Federal credit card after 91 days, then you can request a credit line increase of up to $8,000. Now, I have a video that talked about the brand new update to Navy Federal and requesting a credit line increase. If you haven't seen that, I recommend that you check that out if this is your situation. Now, every subsequent increase, you may request it after 180 days of the previous increase for no more than $8,000. Now, let me give you an example. If you start with an initial credit line of $9,000 in January of 2025, you can request a credit limit increase after 91 days. That will be April 2025. So you can go from that $9,000 credit line to $17,000 because the maximum is $8,000 that you can get as far as we know right now. On October 2025, you can then request another $8,000. Well, not the $8,000, but request a credit line increase. If you do that, you will have $25,000 in total. It took you around 9 months to do that, starting from $9,000 in January of 2025. So if you did not get the limit that you wanted, this is basically the steps that I would take in order to do so. What happens if you didn't get approved at all? I just want to touch on that one more time. Without a doubt, if you're not approved for any credit cards with Navy Federal, it's your TransUnion FICO 9 score. So remember in my formula, if I had to say how the formula was broken down, I would say that your TransUnion FICO 9 score is probably like 50% of what you get approved for. You need to have a good TransUnion FICO 9 score. There's no way around it. You have to have a good one. Now, if you have a good TransUnion FICO 9 score with no late payments, no collections, no charge-offs, anything like that, then the only other thing I could think is that you have a lot of lower limit credit cards, which then they may start you off with something like 10, 9, 15, which is okay. But if you do have other credit cards that are around the same range, 10, 15, 20, 25, that definitely increases your chances of getting a $25,000 initial starting limit. Now, $30,000 is the highest initial credit line that you can start with Navy Federal. From what I've researched, $30,000 is the highest. So to get approved for $25,000, you need to have a strong TransUnion FICO score. If you don't, and you're starting from a place where you're rebuilding, I recommend that you watch my secure card graduation video. I started with a $200 secured card and I worked my way up. Now I have the Go Rewards, the Go Biz for the business credit card. I also have Cash and Flagship. So everyone besides the Amex one and the Platinum did it all in the course of a year. You can start off with very, very low limits and work your way up, and it doesn't take very long for you to actually do that. So this is my recommendation of what I would do if this is your current situation. But again, it will be heavily based on our formula on your TransUnion FICO score. Again, I would say the TransUnion FICO is probably like 50% of if you're going to be able to get this higher limit. So that's something that I would focus on. And if you get an adverse letter, they're going to tell you exactly what was wrong. So focus on that in order for you to understand exactly why maybe you didn't get approved or the limit was a little bit lower. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Really do appreciate it. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. If there's anything else that you think I could have possibly missed or something you want to add to maybe help someone else who is looking to start off with a higher limit, who's a beginner of Navy Federal, you know, your information is as valid as mine. Your experience is just as valid and makes just as much impact on anyone else that is watching this video or reading the comments. So please drop that in the comments below. Love to have new data points. Love your contribution to the channel when you do things like that. Please smash the like button and subscribe if this was helpful information to you. And again, thank you so much and you have a wonderful day.